Hey, Cosmic Souls, and welcome to the Coming Out Cosmic podcast. My name is Christine Nowinski. I am your host. I am an ET contactee, awakening coach, and the founder of Coming Out Cosmic. You can find me at Coming Out Cosmic on all major social platforms. And this podcast is for curious souls who are questioning reality, for those who are open to talking about the weird and esoteric things in this world, such as aliens, reptilians. We talk about things that people are afraid to share. I am here with my best friend for life, Kelsey, and today we're here to talk about a really strange experience that happened to us when we were in Mexico City a couple of years ago, where an entity followed Kelsey home and then started this 6-month trek of bad luck. Wasn't it 6 months?
I'm pretty sure it was 6 months. It was one bad luck thing each month for 6 months.
So first, let's get into the possibility of having something attach itself to you anywhere in life, whether you're on vacation or whether you're at somebody's house. What do you think the possibility is of this actually happening? And how often do you think this happens to people?
Honestly, I feel like it's something that does happen fairly often. I think the one that followed me back from Mexico was more higher level, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
I think even something as simple as like you come home from somewhere and you're in a bad mood could be a negative entity that attached itself to you.
Yes, I agree. And later on in the story, we'll share exactly why we think and have some sort of proof of this negative entity and how we came to realize that's exactly what it was. It wasn't just a lot of bad luck. But let's set the scene. When was this? This was 2021?
No, I'm pretty sure it was 2023, actually.
Oh my God, 2023. Okay, that wasn't that long ago. Okay.
No.
2023, we decided to go on a girls' trip. Yeah. So we go on this girls' trip, and before we even decided on the Airbnb, so let's go back to the time when we decided to choose where we were going to live. I feel like you and I saw this Airbnb, and it was so bizarre because of all the different pictures. We just knew that we had to be in that specific Airbnb. But I remember also having a feeling of, I don't really know if this is a good Airbnb, but we should just do it anyway. How did you feel?
I agree, actually. We were there visiting a friend. Our one friend who brought her boyfriend, they stayed separately. So it was 3 of us in this one Airbnb. Our friend Jess was like, I think we should do that one.
And she's the one who's the least intuitive of the group.
Correct.
Okay, so us intuitive folk were like, this is not the one, but we're going to go with it anyway because It was interesting. It was intriguing. And what was interesting about it is that it looked like it was sort of like a man cave.
Yeah, it was almost like a weird, like, London-y pub type theme.
It was. There was a telephone booth there.
Yes.
Do you remember that? And there was also a big pool table and it had a lot of really cool decorations. However, I remember when we were in that Airbnb, there was this camera set up. It was like this old camera and it was facing the living room and I got freaked out. I knew that it looked like it wasn't functioning anymore because it was more of like a vintage item. And a lot of things in this Airbnb were like vintage. And that's what drew us there to begin with. It was so different.
Yes.
But with this camera, I actually put a blanket over it because I'm like, I feel like something is watching me. I feel like something's looking at me. And later did we find out that I was correct, but it wasn't the camera that was watching us.
And I actually was having the same feelings. We just didn't express that to each other at the time.
Right, because we thought that it was a miracle that us 3 could even agree on a specific Airbnb alone instead of trying to find another one. So yeah, I just wanted to make that clear too, that we did get a weird vibe from the Airbnb before we even went there.
I was actually I know you were on like the pull-out couch, but I was even in a bedroom with the door that closed and I got so freaked out feeling like I was watched. I would lock the door, but I still felt like I was being watched.
You locked the door? What happens if I needed to get in there? Because do you know my situation? I was sitting on the pull-out couch in the living room.
Yes.
And the weirdest thing about this place is that there was only one key and you needed that key to lock it from the inside and from the outside. So there was no, what is that called? There was no like...
Didn't it almost automatically lock? You needed it to get out of the apartment. It wasn't something like we locked it, right?
It was that you needed that one key And if it was locked, you were screwed. If you
Yes,
didn't
were
have the
stuck
key.
in it.
Yes, it wasn't like one of those flip locks like a door. Think about a door right now and you just like flip the latch and it's locked. No, you needed a key to lock it. And because there was only one key and 3 girls staying there, I remember one time I was sleeping on the pull-out couch. I had a migraine and I came back to the apartment. It was just me alone. I didn't actually have the key because you guys would need it to come back later in the night to open the door should I have been sleeping. I wasn't sleeping because I felt watched the entire time. However, because you guys had the key, I could not lock the door. So the door was unlocked and I was like, well, any stranger could come in here.
Right.
And that was the alternative,
Yeah.
was me being locked in there. And I was envisioning the worst case scenario happening because we were in that negative energy.
Okay, so let's move into like some of the signs that like we thought maybe something was there. Actually, we didn't even think it was something at first, but some of the signs that we, looking back on, we should have noticed and were red flags and we just didn't.
Right. And to clarify, you mean that there was a potential negative entity
Yes. Yeah.
entity with us. Okay. You go first.
It started with you. We had been on the Xochimilco boats that day. Really cool experience if you ever are in Mexico City. And we got back to the Airbnb and you had realized your sunglasses were missing.
My $200 sunglasses.
Yes.
And I never spend that much on sunglasses ever.
No.
And I was pissed.
Yeah. And we were digging through your suitcase. You couldn't find them. And you're like, I must have just left them on the boat. And we convinced ourselves that that was what happened. You second guessed it because you're like, I remember having them with me, but I guess I must have just put them down.
It would have been odd for me to leave them on the boat because the boat was very, very small. If you've ever been to Xochimilco, these boats are called trajineras and they're very
Basic.
Yeah, they're colorful. They're flat bottom boats. And it's not like a huge boat or anything where you would anticipate that, oh, my sunglasses could have fallen underneath the seat or, oh, it could have fallen somewhere within this boat. No, they're like very, very basic. If we left something, we would have looked back and seen it.
Yeah, so it was basically just one long table going down the length of the boat with chairs on each side. And that was it. Other than the stuff we physically brought. But then that stuff should have left the boat with us. There was nothing being left on there.
Right. And how many of us were on the trajinera? We were like, there were enough of us to have noticed if we left anything, especially a pair of $200 sunglasses.
Right.
And wouldn't I have been wearing the sunglasses off the boat
'cause it was
anyway?
sunny.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I definitely don't think that I left the sunglasses on the boat. However, we realized that the sunglasses were missing. And then we started thinking somebody came into our Airbnb.
Jess realized she had some jewelry missing as well around the same time.
Oh my God, that was the same time.
Yes, but I checked my stuff. I remember looking specifically for my more expensive, more important things, my AirPods and my passport. I looked, both were there. Because my stuff was still there, AirPods of all things were like, those are expensive, those would be gone. So we just convinced ourselves it was somewhere in the mess and we would find it eventually.
Yes.
But then the next day was when we were just hanging out in the Airbnb. I was like, I want to listen to reels and stuff on my phone without being annoying. So I went to go get my AirPods and they were gone. I know they were there the day before because we were looking because your stuff had gone missing and we wanted to see if I had anything missing. So they were there the day before.
Wait, this is the weird part. Each of us 3 had one personal item missing. What are the odds that if somebody actually were coming in and taking our stuff, they would know to choose one personal item from each of us? And it's not that we all had our own separate rooms. You had your own separate room with AirPods, yes. My sunglasses were on the pool table. Jess's jewelry was on the pool table. It's
Yes.
like this person or this thing or whatever was taking our items knew that each of these things had a deep connection to all of us personally. And that was the weird thing about it.
It's like they wanted to pick something that we would notice, not
Yes.
something like innocuous, like, oh, maybe I dropped it, maybe I left it. It was big things that we would notice were missing.
Yes.
And because like anything of mine could have been taken, but I know the 2 things I specifically looked for the day before were the AirPods and the passport.
Oh my God, I didn't even put those 2 together that you
Yeah.
specifically looked for those. And the jewelry of Jessica's that went missing was her special Italian jewelry that she had gotten from Italy just a couple months prior. So this was
Yes.
like important stuff. And it was just one item from each of us. If somebody were to be going into that Airbnb and taking our stuff, why wouldn't they have taken my laptop?
Exactly.
It was right there on the counter. So let's get into the final decision when things got so freaky that we decided to just up and leave and abandon our Mexican Airbnb.
Yes. So once I realized my AirPods were missing, me and you specifically got very freaked out. We're like, either something or someone is in here. We had both been feeling watched. So I think that made us more on edge, even though we hadn't expressed that to each other yet, that we both felt that way.
Yes.
But knowing we had stuff going missing out of the Airbnb, we were both like, we're done. We need to leave. This was 2 days before we were supposed to leave Mexico, and it was at night. So our friend Jess, who isn't as like intuitive, she was like, I just want to sleep. I don't want to move. This is going to be a pain in the ass. You guys are crazy. There's no one coming in here. We're not being watched.
Oh my God. And you and I were like, fuck it. We're leaving.
Yeah.
You stay.
Yeah. We're like, we're going to stay with Leanne.
Thankfully, we do have our other friend, Leanne, who lives in Mexico City. So we did have a safe place to go to during the night. And I remember we finally convinced Jess to leave. We packed up all of our shit. We stormed out of that Airbnb. And for reference of how this Airbnb was built, it was more of an apartment, I would say.
Yeah.
And so there was a security guard as you exited and left the apartment, which is actually very common in Mexico. As we were leaving, we were
poor
pissed.
man looked so confused.
He looked so confused. And this is a man that we would see obviously every single day coming in and out of the apartment. I felt like I trusted him.
Yes.
I didn't get a bad vibe from him at all. When we stormed out of there pissed, he looked extremely confused. And then we were trying to rationalize the entire experience at Leanne's house. We're like, what if it was the guard? He has a key. What if it was the cleaning lady? Because we're trying to rationalize the missing stuff, but we were never able to rationalize that creepy, we're always being watched feeling.
And so our friend Leanne that lives in Mexico, she's also more intuitive. She admitted when she walked into the Airbnb when we first got there, she also got a weird feeling from it.
Yes. So always trust your intuition, everybody.
Yes.
That is the moral of the story. But now we get into part 2 of the Mexican entity story, because now you know a little bit more about our experience in Mexico. It did not end there, folks.
No, it came back to the U.S. with me.
And if you knew Kelsey, she's the sweetest, most gentle soul. And you'll find out how she was able to get rid of this Mexican entity that attached herself to it. It probably had a lot to do with your gentleness.
Yes.
But what happened, Kelsey, when we came back to America?
So, ironically, it was an avocado that started this off. This trip happened in April. May rolls around. Trying to make myself lunch. I'm cutting an avocado. I can admit this isn't the smartest way to get the pit out of an avocado, but I would always stab the pit with the tip of the knife.
Okay.
On this day, it slipped, went through the avocado and into my palm.
Oh my God.
In the process, severing a nerve in my hand.
Okay, I'm laughing because this is just the start, guys. This is
how it all starts out. And so because a nerve was severed, I needed surgery on my hand because of an avocado.
I remember when we met up and we had dinner at Olive Garden, and I noticed your hand. It was all bandaged up. And I was like, what happened to your hand? And you told me the story about the avocado, and I was laughing because it sounded so ridiculous. That is not something that typically happens to you.
No.
You're typically responsible. You're typically, I think, around a lot of positive energy.
Yes. When this did happen, my family joked, like, I cannot believe that this is the first cooking related injury you've ever had, because I'm not a good cook. And I'm like typically kind of like a clumsy person. But again, like Christine has just said, this stuff doesn't happen to me.
It doesn't. So it was very odd that it happened, and it continued to happen because what happened next?
Got surgery on my hand, thought all was good. June rolls around. I get a speeding ticket. I was going to a baby shower. I was not supposed to be driving. My sister was supposed to drive, but she was hungover and needed a nap on the way to the baby shower.
Oh my God, Courtney.
She was the reason we were running late. Usually it's me, but it was her that day. So because we were running late, I felt the need to go faster. I am a fast driver, but I'm usually very lucky and don't get caught. But on that day, I got pulled over and got a speeding ticket.
Okay. Pretty out of the norm for you.
Yes.
And what else happened?
Moving into July, I got a bat in my apartment.
You had a bat in your apartment.
Yes. I left the windows open in my apartment that don't have screens on them. I rarely get bugs in, let alone a bat, but I'm sleeping. I had the blinds in my room down, but open, so my cats could look outside of them, and I wanted the breeze to come in. I wake up to something clattering in my blinds, and then all of a sudden I realize it's flying around my room. I grab my cats, turn the fan off so whatever this is doesn't get hit and like massacred by my fan. And I'm sitting there processing. I'm like, that was too big to be a bug, but it wasn't flapping like a bird would. You can hear a bird's wings flap.
Yeah.
I'm like, that was a bat. And this is middle of the night. Birds aren't out in the middle of the night.
Right.
So luckily, just by leaving my window open, it found its way out. The next day, me and my mom tore my entire bedroom apart. My poor mother, she was fed up with me at this point. After the avocado, the speeding ticket, now a bat. She has to help me tear my room apart to make sure there's no more bat. But what are the odds of that happening?
Okay, so there's a couple themes here that I wanted to point out. First, you mentioned that yes, it was due to your stupidity that you left the screen and the window down. However, these are all things that are out of the norm.
Yes.
And these all happened within a short amount of time.
Yes.
Okay.
As I said, I haven't had screens in those windows ever. And I had been in there for about a year and a half, having my windows open without screens and been fine.
Yes. And another theme that I'm sensing, and this is actually one of the reasons you were able to get rid of the Mexican entity that was attached to you. And again, we'll get into how we know with a lot of certainty that that's exactly what this was. Another theme that I'm sensing is that you have always been able to keep it positive after every single situation. So with the avocado, you said you were joking about it with your family.
Yes.
With the speeding ticket, you're like, oh man, like my sister's hungover, you know, this wasn't even supposed to happen. There was more like joking, like more lightheartedness, more high vibrations with it.
Yes.
And then with the bat, you had said you were just trying to make sure that it got out of the room. It wasn't massacred. You were trying to help it out. There was a lot of like high vibrations. You didn't go into these situations with anger, rage, fear, anything like that, really.
No, in the moment as they happened, yes. But once I was out of that, like after I cut my hand and everything was fine, after I knew the bat was gone and the stress of that was gone, I could laugh about it and be like, oh, only me that this stuff would happen to.
Right. And other people might have stayed in that low vibration of complaining about it for weeks on end, and you did not.
Right. Yes. To me, these were all just funny stories to tell.
Exactly. Okay. So what else happened?
August, I went to a bar after a wedding with my friends. The bouncer walks in and says, does anyone have a gray Kia? I remember specifically looking over at my sister and being like, wow, how lucky that I'm not the one with the gray Kia. I have a black Kia. A couple minutes later, he comes back in. Actually, it's a black Kia. Does anyone have a black Kia? Yes, I have a black Kia. I walk out into the parking lot. Someone backed into my car and drove away. But again, the positive side, the good luck side, the bouncer saw who it was and got his license plate.
See?
Yes.
You kept it high vibe. And
Yeah.
even so, some people might look at that and be like, I'm going to go toilet paper that person's house and keep it all like low vibrational, but you were able to just take care of it.
Yes, so we called the police. The police tracked the man down. I was, I guess, inconvenienced in the sense that I had to go get my car fixed, but his insurance took care of it.
Was there something else that happened?
Yes. So this was the finale.
Buckle up, folks.
Moving into September, I was lucky enough to have my friend Jess, that was also with us in Mexico. She was bringing me with her to Italy to go to a wedding as her +1. And we were planning, on top of going to Italy, we were going to Germany for Oktoberfest and then Ireland. Jessica's brother was going to pick me up from my parents' house to bring us to the airport that day. I get to my parents, typical me fashion, I forget something. I forgot I think it's called a dirndl. It's the traditional German dress that I had bought for Oktoberfest. I called Jess. I tell her I forgot it. Ask if I have enough time to go back to my apartment and get the dress. She said, yeah, if you leave now, no problem. You have enough time. Great. I run over some glass and get a flat tire.
Man, and when was the last time any of us have gotten a flat tire?
Literally, knock on wood, other than that time, never gotten a flat tire.
And then at what point during this saga of bad luck did you start thinking that something was wrong.
It had to have been after the bat.
I remember that it was still summertime. So if this was going back into September, it was still summertime then that you had actually come to me and you're like, Christine, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
Your intuition picked up on it. And we were looking at tarot readings. I was doing a tarot reading for you.
Yeah.
I don't remember what was said during that tarot reading, but I do know with a reading from my friend Laura from lauradchannels.com. She's a very highly intuitive psychic channeler. We learned the truth of what actually happened during that whole situation.
Yeah, so it was actually an entity that followed me back from Mexico. The funny thing is, it didn't originate in the Airbnb.
Right.
It picked me up on the street.
It did. It literally picked you up. That's what Laura said.
Yeah.
Laura was like, yeah, this entity saw you group of girls and thought, this is interesting. I'm going to follow them back. So the entity did follow us back, which now makes sense because the guard was so confused. Had there been like hauntings or anything in that Airbnb before, I'm sure the guard would have known.
Right. And there were so many good reviews. If it was the guard or a cleaning lady taking stuff, why wouldn't it have happened before?
Exactly.
And why wouldn't he have like worse reviews?
Oh my God. And the Airbnb host was pissed. He thought that we were making it up.
He thought we were scamming him to get our money back from Airbnb.
Yeah.
I felt bad for him because genuinely in my heart at the time, whether it was a person or an entity, at the time I just knew that it had nothing to do with him. So I did feel bad for him, which led me to not leave a review. But then he wrote a nasty review on my Airbnb page.
And I warned you about that. I was like,
Yeah.
you need to write a review, but you never wrote a bad review about the Airbnb. No matter if I pushed you, you never
Yeah.
did. And I think that was, now looking back, that was a good idea because it really was not his fault or the
Right.
Airbnb's fault at all. So now what ended up happening with that Mexican entity is that through Laura's channeling, not only did she confirm that that was a very negative entity that was just attracted to our light, it chose you specifically to follow back home because at the time your vibration was a bit lower than the others in the group. And so I know that we had mentioned that our friend Jessica, the third one in our group, she's not as intuitive as we are, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you have a lesser or a more high vibration. So I just wanted to point that out, like, oh, why didn't the entity choose the person who was less intuitive? It's because there was something within you at the time, maybe more specifically fear-based as well, that it was able to attach to you because these entities cannot just attach to you unless there's a vibrational alignment in some way.
And I also believe when you come here, your soul wants to learn lessons. It's probably just some sort of like lesson or experience my soul wanted or needed to learn.
Yes.
Even though I don't consciously know how I got at the time, consciously didn't know what I was doing was getting rid of it. I think it's something I needed to experience and go through.
Yes. And looking back, seeing all the bad luck and how well you were able to just laugh it off was one of the ways in which you were able to get rid of that entity, because Laura had even said in her channeling, oh, wow, Kelsey did a great job getting rid of that entity. And what ended up happening was when that entity came off of you, it was actually picked up by a bigger, more strong entity that was also negative and wanted to feed off of that negative entity. So that one is gone. You don't have to worry about him or her anymore. That entity is gone.
Just to tie it all together, after the flat tire, that was the last time I had a bad experience. It was just another thing I laughed off.
Now I have one last question about this whole situation.
Yes.
Where did our things go?
I think that entity was using my AirPods to listen to this podcast.
Why would that entity need my sunglasses and nice jewelry from Italy?
He wanted to look nice while listening to the podcast.
And there you have it. A Mexican entity being attached to my poor friend Kelsey. For how many months?
6 months.
6 months. So if it happened to her, it can definitely happen to you. And now you know to get rid of these entities, you just got to keep it high vibrational and be grateful and laugh off things.
Yes.
Well, that's it for the Coming Out Cosmic podcast today. If you have any stories, please feel free to message, DM me. I'm at Coming Out Cosmic on all major platforms, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thank you, Kelsey, so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me and letting me come out cosmic.
Yay! Okay, bye.